Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into maybe the biggest question there is. We're going to look at Ramesh Chauhan's incredible work to explore not just, hey, is there life after death, but also how does just believing in it change how we live our lives every single day? So let's just get right to it. This is a question I know I've thought about, and I'm sure you have too. What if this isn't it? What if death isn't the end of the story? Not a full stop, but maybe a comma or a new chapter. All right, so where does the author even begin to build a case for the afterlife? Well, it's not about finding one single gotcha piece of evidence. Instead, the whole argument is built by weaving together threads from all over human history and experience. It's a synthesis. And let's be clear, this question is ancient. I mean, we're talking thousands of years old. The author traces it from the earliest epics in Mesopotamia, where you see these first glimmers of hope for immortality, to ancient Egypt, with the incredibly detailed Book of the Dead basically acting as a GPS for the soul. And it hasn't stopped. The quest is still on today, both in science labs and in people's own personal story. And this is what I find so interesting, the sheer range of sources being pulled together here. It's not just about one religion or one philosophy. It's about spotting a pattern that shows up everywhere. In religious ideas like karma and resurrection, in philosophy going back to Plato's concept of the soul, in the stories we tell, like Dante's Inferno, or even Pixar's Coco. And then you have the modern stuff, scientific studies into near-death experiences, and these really compelling personal stories about past life memories. And that all leads to the central argument here. It's not just that these things happen. The key, according to Chauhan, is their consistency. Why do near-death experiences sound so similar, no matter what culture you're from? How can some reincarnation memories be verified against historical facts? The author argues that this kind of evidence really pushes back against the idea that our consciousness is just brain chemistry. It suggests there's something more going on. Okay, so let's just accept the premise for a moment. Let's say, okay, there's an afterlife. The source then asks the really big "so what" question. What does that actually do to us? How does that belief ripple out and change our actions, our ethics, our entire society? Well, the first and maybe most obvious ripple hits our personal morality. The idea is simple: accountability. But we're talking accountability on a cosmic scale. Whether it's karma, the idea that what goes around comes around in the next life, or a final judgment. The core belief is that your actions have consequences that echo into eternity. What you do here matters. And this isn't just abstract theory. The source gives this amazing real-world example. It's the story of an Indian businessman named Raj. After he performed the Shraddha ritual for his late father, he was so moved that he started funding orphanages. Why? Because he genuinely believed that his good deeds here on earth would help his father's soul on its journey in the afterlife. That's belief turned into action. But, and this is a really important but, it's not that simple. The source raises a tricky question. If you're focused on actions that earn you, let's say, karmic points or a ticket to heaven, does that mean you might ignore bigger, messier societal problems that don't offer a direct personal reward? It's a real dilemma. Okay, let's shift gears to justice. This is fascinating. The source points to a 2024 criminology study that found something pretty striking. Communities with a high belief in an afterlife tend to have lower crime rates. It seems like the idea that you'll eventually be held accountable, no matter what, is a pretty powerful deterrent. But again, there is a dilemma. On one hand, believing in a final, divine justice can be a huge comfort for victims. It can even lead to incredible acts of forgiveness, like the story of Maria forgiving her brother's killer. But here's the tough question. Does waiting for justice after death sometimes make us a little too passive about fighting for justice right here, right now? And you see this same exact tension play out with environmental ethics. Think about it. If you believe in a cyclical view of life, like reincarnation, you have a pretty strong incentive to take care of the planet, right? I mean, you might be coming back. But if you hold a more linear view, where Earth is just a temporary waiting room before you go to heaven, well, the source suggests that could, potentially, lead some to care a little less about long-term earthly stewardship. All right, let's zoom out a bit. We've seen how these beliefs affect us as individuals. But what about how they shape our societies? How do they bring us together? And maybe, how do they push us apart? Well, the research here points to a really powerful unifying effect. These shared rituals, things like Shinto Oban festivals in Japan or community prayers for the deceased, they're not just traditions. The data shows they build huge amounts of social trust. They knit communities and families together in a really profound way.
But you knew there was a but coming, right? This is the flip side. When you create such a strong, tight-knit group based on shared belief, like in the story of Ahmed finding community through a virtual prayer, you have to ask, does that automatically create an outgroup? Does that powerful sense of belonging for some lead to a sense of exclusion for others who don't believe?
Okay, let's touch on something deeply personal for so many of us, grief. And here, the impact can be massive. The source cites a 2023 study that found people with strong afterlife beliefs experience a 25% reduction in bereavement stress. That's huge. The hope of seeing a loved one again is, without a doubt, a powerful comfort. And yet, even with something so positive, the dilemma pops up again. On one side, you have stories like the one about Nurse Sarah's patient, where this belief clearly provides a path to healing. But on the other side, the source makes sure to include the skeptic's view. Could this hope in some cases actually get in the way of accepting the finality of loss and achieving real closure? And finally, charity. It's clear that beliefs about the afterlife inspire incredible acts of giving, like Dena or Seva, often done to help a soul on its journey. It's a huge motivator for social good. But it brings us back to that fascinating question we touched on earlier. Is it selfless altruism? Or is it a kind of spiritual strategy? So, wow, we've gone through all these different ripples: morality, justice, community. What's the big takeaway from all of this? How does it all connect? I think this table from the source just sums it up perfectly. Look at the pattern. Down the line, for every single theme, morality, justice, community, grief, charity, there's a powerful positive influence right next to a really tough ethical question. It shows that this isn't about black and white answers. It's about living inside that tension, inside that complexity. So, what's the final conclusion? In the end, the source argues that believing in an afterlife isn't actually about, well, the afterlife. It's not about sitting around and waiting for what's next. It's a call to action for right now. It's a framework for living with more purpose, more compassion, and more hope today. And that's where this whole explainer leaves us. It turns the question right back around to you, to me, to all of us, with this final, powerful challenge from Chauhan. It's not a debate to be won or lost. It's a question to be lived.